Looks like someone's still on a Halloween high. In my rush to get filming for you today, I literally shaved off a piece of my own face. The shirt was white 4 minutes ago. I look like Freddy Krueger. I look like Hamburglar and the Elephant Man. Pineapple Express. If you can't see past my new horror, I'm still JP Sebastian, and you're watching See No Evil. In today's show, this weekend's latest go-releases include Everybody's Baby, Florence Pugh bouncing back from Don't Worry Darling, and Bill Nighy promises an Akira Kurosawa-derived cry-fest. I'll also share a snippet of an interview I did with director Ruben Östlund for his Khan darling, Triangle of Sadness. Later, I'm guns blazing criticism in at one of the most streamed of the week, All Quiet on the Western Front. Never do finger guns. Cheesy, sleazy. The perspective's relatively fresh, but can this German to the core kino drive home its message? I'll summarize in the meantime. War is f***ing horrible, and we shouldn't want it. And lastly, I get to go ham about Paul Thomas Anderson again, celebrating the 10-year Cinem-Anniversary of The Master. 2 weeks ago, it was Punch Drunk Love. From me and my gaping shaving wound, we see no evil. We kick it off with movies to keep an eye out for. I swear that poor pun is going to get some human rights attorney knocking down my door any day now. Other problem is, quite frankly, every new trailer this week was doo-doo. More like failures. Am I right, folks? Okay, I swear I'm booking myself a date in The Hague any day now. I did all the war crimes. XOXO. What's more, this week's news is kinda dry too. Or gooey, anyhow. As for one thing, cool. Two-time Venom writer Kelly Marcel sinks her teeth into the director's chair for the third. God bless that lady and Tom Hardy, who returns to the writer's room for Venom 3. In fact, I confidently pre-critique this one, an impressive 12 Mobiuses out of 10. On the Mob meter. It's official. You can look it up. Other headline was, hell no to Henry Cavill leaving poor Geralt an unemotional wreck. But I'm cheating. Just a Witcher wonk squeezing TV news into the movie show. Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit decoctions. Nearly a Freudian slip saying that. So my second cheat is just covering some of last week's other interesting trailers that might have fallen into the shadows of Ant-Man, Creed, and the Guardians trailers. I'm sure it got attention from some of you, but any amounts more than Hugh Jackman seems to pay to the Sun. Its director Florian Zeller previously tore us all a new one in the chest with The Father, which earned Anthony Hopkins a second Oscar. Will it set Adamantium Man on the course for Academy Aurum? JP means will it get Wolverine Oscar Gold. The trailer sure looks emotionally primed enough, with the poor titular lad crying, I don't know what's happening to me of his mental decay. It all unravels starting November's end. And if only the Sun had a psych like Stutz, or if we all did, or if we collectively wondered if there wasn't some common systemic origin to our discontent. Anyway, Stutz looks syrupy good and honest. Jonah Hill seems to make himself hella vulnerable in a docky biopic and ode to world-famous shrink, full Stutz. The sweet beardy boy says to a mirthful Stutz, my life has gotten immeasurably better as a result of working with you. If it worked for me, maybe it will work for other people. They then sweetly laugh out the difficulties of taking the walk toward mental healing. From who you wish would just listen, to who you wish would just fork over the tools for the healing. We're hoping this could be an invitation to take the brave step through insecurities and tell ourselves, maybe I could use a hand. Search your feelings as early as streaming next week. And finally, tiniest of all, damn, we're still doing the mental health thing. I can take a hint, Hollywood. You Resemble Me boasts big backing from both execs in Spike Lee and Jonesy. Director Spike Lee and director Spike Jonze. In particular, I can see how it attracted the Her director Jonesy for its sci-fi feel. Though the more obvious comparison for director Dina Amer's debut movie is probably A Scanner Darkly, as the protagonist seems to learn a weird ability to metamorphosize her face to survive life's hardest situations. It's a cool effect. The heart of the story is darker than just that, based on a real-life journey to terrorist radicalization. But I've run down the trailer clock. You Resemble Me is already in US limited release since Friday, so we'll get it in other countries too soon. Speaking of titles still on circuit, and since I'm just about to cover the stuff that came out on Friday, last week I chatted with Ruben Östlund, director for Palme d'Or winner Triangle of Sadness. So here's me inappropriately elated to be in the presence of greatness. Gigantic congratulations for Triangle of Sadness. This is one of the hardest laughs I've had in a long, long time.
I'm happy to hear that.
Seriously funny. I'm JP, by the way, for See No Evil. And if those of you who are watching, this is Ruben Östlund, director of Triangle of Sadness. And so that's the first thing we have to get out of the way. Please tell me, Ruben, that the Triangle of Sadness is not a real thing that is referred to, is it?
Yes, of course it's a real thing. It's a real thing when it comes to plastic surgery. And the term comes from that my wife had a friend that was on a date with someone working with Botox. And you know, when you have a date, you sit on the opposite of a table and staring at the other's face. It's a kind of horrible situation. And then all of a sudden, when they're sitting there and eating, she heard this guy saying, "Oh, I can see that you have a deep triangle of sadness." And he's touching himself in between the eyebrows like this. And my wife's friend is going like, "Whoa, what do you mean?" Like, "Oh, no, but it's this wrinkle that you get from having a lot of trouble in your life. And what have happened to you, you know?" And then he goes, "Don't worry, we can fix that with Botox in 15 minutes." So I thought that like just said something about the world and our times and everything like that. Yeah.
It was irresistible to you, I suppose, like the cosmetic papering over of real deep sadness rather than addressing the sadness itself?
Exactly. That's, yeah.
So that's a question I want to come back to later, though, because it's like a lot to unpack, I'm sure. But keeping it with the simple, straightforward stuff, why did you choose a boat for Triangle of Sadness?
Because I knew that I wanted to have the possibility of following the two main characters, Carl and Jaya, that is a male and a female model, on this luxury yacht where they meet the creme de la creme of our society. They should meet the Marxist captain. They should meet a couple of billionaires, but also the film should take them to a deserted island. So the luxury yacht should go under. And I was very fond of the idea of putting a couple of billionaires, the two models, and a cleaning lady from the yacht on a deserted island. So going from two worlds, like the fashion world and the yacht world, where the hierarchies are so set, very strong hierarchies, and then in the last part, taking away all the hierarchies and see what happened. So the yacht is basically playing a role in the bigger picture, but then of course also it was fun to go into the yacht and look at what kind of environment that is.
And all of that makes perfect sense. But I was just reminded, by the way, maybe if it rings a bell for you, that it was Slavoj Žižek who was referring to at the end of Children of Men, that the boat is symbolic of like unmooring yourselves of ideology, that you have to return to zero, which is what your island does in a way as well.
Okay, no, but interesting.
I think it functions here.
Yeah, I think that for me the boat is like a micro society.
Holy smokes, the guy was only the 9th person in history to win more than one Palme d'Or, and the 3rd to do so consecutively. This monkey's gone to heaven. Pixies fans? No? Anyway, so since we subjected poor Ruben Östlund to 10 minutes with my weird ass, and since Triangle of Sadness will be with us all the way to Oscar season, we'll bring you more of the whole interview in coming weeks. But right this weekend, we caught a huge haul of new movies in our theaters. Here are 5 of the latest go-releases, yours to see as of last Friday. But 2 quick mentions I covered enthusiastically recently. Why not test if an Amblin-produced doc about a Mars rover can wring the sads out of you? Yes, from the ET studio, Good Night Oppie gets some big screen before streaming. And here to squeeze the sweat from you, Hunt looks like an axe kick to your adrenal glands. That's like all the way from the top of your forehead, though, down to your kidneys. Directed by and starring Lee Jung-jae of Squid Game, so from broke to breakneck in this propulsive political banger, I'm there. Look out, Luffy lovers, we now hop over the Korea-Japan isthmus for One Piece film Red, near you now. How is this happening, by the way? There are some sweet-ass anime making it all the way to our non-Japanese countries. I mean, we just got Dragon Ball Superhero, which ruled. And now the Straw Hats team up with mystery diva Uta, and high seas adventure ensues. Keeping it Eastern, indirectly, it's Living starring Bill Nighy. Eastern how exactly? This looks very British. Living's got big shoes to fill as a remake of Kurosawa's immortal Ikiru. And how big are those shoes? Ikiru could just change your life. But I've got hopes we're about to catch a good Nahi cry too from its story of a bureaucrat fearfully staring down death by illness, taking a leap of faith, breaking pattern to figure out the meaning of it all. And we mentioned the man who wrestled with similar characters earlier. Anthony Hopkins seems like the beating heart to Armageddon Time. A semi-autobiopic of director James Gray's coming of age. You might have enjoyed his Ad Astra, his Lost City of Z, not so much for JP, neither. Hopkins is like an anti-racist fairy godfather, encouraging the kid to fight for friendship with the black kid his family and community tries to split him from. Be a mensch, he says. Feel good, good advice, I say. Inseparable, on the other hand, are experimental filmmakers and besties, Benson and Moorhead. Fresh off of Moon Knight, the pair keep it interesting with Something in the Dirt, starring two as slacker types with plans for Payday capturing the paranormal. So think Nope, but it also has the lovable DIY feel of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Time for that tired line, striking visuals, and I'm all eyes. I was watching Midsommar again as I wrote this part, and I swear, if the wonder makes Florence cry, I'm putting that Swedish sledgehammer to a studio wall. It feels Shutter Island, with a nurse Pugh invited to examine a kid's health in an isolated community after kid claims God's keeping her alive after months without food, eating only manna from heaven. I was literally just forced to turn down the volume on Midsommar at this point to avoid that phone call horse ball. Florence Pugh, incredible. So I'm probably feeling a bit too screwed up to watch this psychological thriller. 100% streaming that ASAP. In today's film criticism, we unpack that one war movie, the new one. The one everyone's promising finally makes war seem ugly. Yeah, it's kind of a weird sales pitch, isn't it? Like, who are these people all these years having watched Full Metal Jacket, Apocalypse Now, Come and See, or Saving Private Ryan, all going, hey, sign me up. I too long for the blue cheese knee wound smell. Settle down, Skyrim heads, I'm talking about Gangrene. Saving Private Ryan reference. What is this great course correction some people are all thinking All Quiet on the Western Front sets itself to? Have you ever felt misled about the true horror of war? In the extreme, maybe you should spread your wings a bit and diversify away from a strictly Chuck Norris diet. Before we dig into the film criticism of it all, of All Quiet on the Western Front, it sounds like JP's riled up for another orangutangent. The second of the season, which is weird when you think about how often I ramble off into the underbrush. Hell, even this is a branch off from the tangent itself. Christopher Nolan achieves romantic conclusion somewhere. Anyway, here's what's worth discussing. Maybe. Do movies have any impact? Wait, that's a larger question. Rather, how is it that movies claiming to be anti-whatever often seem to get co-opted by the very whatever they're anti? Like, why is it, from veterans I've spoken to or enough online presence, it seems like every green recruit can't wait to touch down in the next desert, and it's usually a desert, to pronounce, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Well, of course, if we're splitting hairs, or atoms more appropriately, it's a tangent chain reaction over here. Technically, it's now, I love the smell of depleted uranium in the morning. And it's not just weirdos gagging to shout down their own personal private Gomer Pyle, but this phenomenon of counterproductive co-opting appears in non-war movies too. I've traveled among enough finance bros to know they've got Gecko's credo of greed is good on a hair trigger, should you suggest maybe people shouldn't die of cheaply preventable diseases. Yes, Oliver Stone's classic anti-Wall Street movie probably wouldn't have counterproductively reared a generation of vulture capitalists if it had just, titled itself, Anti-Wall Street. It's bad, actually. Don't be these guys, the movie. Other non-war genre movies getting picked up by the very peeps under the microscope, consider Every Time Scarface is referenced in hip-hop, the movie about the futility, nihilism, and paranoia of the cutthroat ambition for ambition's sake, cocaine Ouroboros. Does this misreading of critical movies arise in a cross-section of society just refusing to engage their critical thinking when watching cautionary movies? Like, are these the same people who recently lamented Rage Against the Machine turning political? An enchanted existence, them all. Bless them. But also, what function or responsibility do you think filmmakers have carrying their baby past birth? Standing up to say, no, you've misunderstood the point of the movie. My movie. I suspect another thing goes on here though, and it's exemplified in Private Joker from Full Metal Jacket, funny enough. The guy's an ironic walk-in contradiction of anti-war criticism who seems to take up the job with gusto. AKA, I know the mission's a crock of horse from the brass above, but I'm somehow exonerated by my own skepticism. Talk about futility and nihilism a la Scarface. I think Jarhead actually accomplishes a decent glance at how films been metabolized by the self-same systems they mean to criticize, with both Jake Gyllenhaal and Peter Sarsgaard's characters torn up by their own contradictions. A fantastic non-war film that similarly examines pop cultural co-opting is American Animal, like Antimatter to, say, Ready Player One. But I'll have to dig into those another day. I've just thoroughly massacred my time for All Quiet. Here it comes. So now that we've established that there are real pitfalls to a kind of mismetabolism of even the most horrifying war depictions, can All Quiet on the Western Front stand up to this humongous challenge? Deterring life on Earth from war, as opposed to getting co-opted, romanticized, or rationalized. So here I go like a proud French Hotchkiss Model 1914 8mm Lebel machine gun with a rapid-fire film criticism in at All Quiet on the Western Front. Minor point, but nice touch. It cleverly kicks down the door with a close-up on some squishy fox cubs cuddled up in a den with mom. This resonated as something pretty darn clever, considering I feel like we've cemented a lot of images in our heads of an eternal theater of war, a 1,000-year-old death factory floor where even the scorched trees are all like hollowed infrastructure by now. But beautiful life, human and otherwise, thrived where days later we mass manufacture death. It's immediately depressing as hell. After which you're taken to a nightmare shot of bodies baked into the soil like they're the damn topography, the dirt itself. All the while bullets and shells pock the flesh landscape at no one, munitions meaninglessly meeting no living targets, aimlessness in multiple senses. Contrast that though with instances of extremely shot-convenient action of like a stray bullet perfectly finding a guy's eye as he reaches out to a compatriot. Sort of over-constructing the drama, which can unfortunately remove you from the horror of the indifference of the brutality, like in the corpse opening. The man-made kind of cosmic indifference is nightmarish. That you might be in the middle of a sentence, or yawning, or feeling the sun's warmth on your face when the machine calls your number. So, like another time, a panicking guy is instructed not to leave a bunker and magically catches a shell in the door's threshold, framed perfectly at the time of exit. Maybe don't screw with the impersonal indifference All Quiet and design real-life hell as horror jump scares. And speaking of jumps, it's not a complete sin, but it whiplashes from recruit frat boy enthusiasm to PTSD hell maybe too quickly, like the first 20 minutes. Consider like half of Full Metal Jacket is the nightmare of boot camp dehumanization, being an input for the machine before you see any Vietnam. Or how Jarhead is virtually entirely just waiting with your brothers, love them or leave them. And so the sense of community and camaraderie in All Quiet is kind of breakneck. And a lot of that time is stolen by pretty undercompelling interspersed tellings of the ceasefire effort helmed by Daniel Brühl. The exchanges here are a bit on the nose, of dudes chowing down like the steward of Gondor, while soldiers eat dirt elsewhere. But this easy image of singular prideful gluttons is not great analysis for a war in large part an inevitability of capitalism carving up colonies. This part of the story is also why it feels disjointed, and you sort of wish you could just spend more time with the boys than the brass. Compare 1917, which steeps and engrosses you by virtue of its one-take trickery. You could have gotten a more compact sense of cohesion, exhibiting the madness of fights killing thousands over a few hundred meters more. Spend more time in the meaningless to and fro of trench reach. That said, reliables like Brühl are good, and especially the performance of Albrecht Schuch as Cat. They all do what they can with characters not exactly fleshed out for motivation, like what is the war stealing from them, the who's back home, and the what's the dream that could have been, etc., etc. Those aren't really deep enough in this movie. The music choices are odd at times, incongruously like the Birdman freestyle drums, but it's probably a fair shake-up if we're so used to march snares, horns through the hall of time, or other cliches like tum, that kind of thing. Also, the cinematography is pristine to a fault, and not exactly reinventing war filming, but that's also not a deal breaker here. All Quiet on the Western Front is as good an addition as any to the genre, worthy of a 6.5, but don't expect it to move the needle on dissuading the war horny. And so sinfully even quicker to the See No Evil Cinem-Anniversary for The Master, turning 10 years old this week. Look, I love kung fu movies too, but every time I get my hopes of rewatching the Paul Thomas Anderson movie dashed by the TV, I plot revenge on the Shaolin Temple. And doing so would still be less unhinged than The Master's frontman Freddie Quell, who earned Joaquin Phoenix the lead actor Oscar nom. Freddie Quell is half man, half red flag. It feels like back then you needed a criminal act named after yourself before anyone would be like, whoa, watch out for that guy. Like you needed to pioneer a new form of assault. But you don't just see Freddie's disturbance get laughed off in interpersonal relations. But the point is, The Master begins with the military's haphazard psych debrief of this damaged guy and just blasts him off into society to raw dog life. I think I'm showing my Leto Joker PTSD here. Damaged society. And guaranteed this was the one that made Todd Phillips say, that's Joker. You're all blessed with the rejuvenating powers of youth, a military bigwig says to the suffering soldiers, then bye-bye into the world. In fact, the system's not just indifferent, but almost seems more interested in the behavioral data collection than healing veterans. I'd say PTA should try an MK Ultra story next. Quell then breezes from job to job, only to turn into a crazed cyclone when daddy issues arise. Reminded of a traumatic upbringing in certain customers or co-workers, compounded with something like a jealousy at the normalness of the lives of others. Especially since there's a pre-war love he hopes to return to, but must feel like he'd only f*** it up in his state. Fortunately, none of this is in your face. The writing's superb, and actually the voice of the score folds in the unspoken perfectly. No alarms and no surprises, as the job's down to Radiohead all-rounder and genius Johnny Greenwood. Sadly, this was also the final major role for another genius, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Please listen for the signs of self-destruction in those around you. That Oscar-nominated role presents an opportunity to Phoenix's Freddie Quell of a path to healing. Sadly enough, ironically. Again, this is not at all obvious, but you get these sad glimmers of hope in an otherwise completely random wreck of a man during his therapy sessions, with the master Lancaster Dodd, aka Hoffman. But that squishiness aside, it all moves with a sense of a storm brewing, a clashing of forces between the atavistic caveman Freddie Quell and the contrived wise man in Lancaster Dodd. You're sort of tricked for a long time thinking the story inevitably explodes from the Mr. Hyde end of things, but obviously it's the fragile fake civility of the cult leader Dr. Jekyll that's the horror here. They love each other and they loathe each other, largely for recognizing one easily sees through the BS and defense mechanisms of the other. An exquisitely written unity of opposites, mirrored in its larger allegory for the age of PR spin meets blood and guts industrialism, like an extension of the time bomb frenemies Plainview and Sunday in PTA's previous masterpiece There Will Be Blood. I might have to take the shame of under-talking to this one to YouTube, but till then, why don't you go say happy 10-year Cinem-Anniversary this week to another fascinating, tortured half-drama, half-thriller thing in The Master. Absolutely watch this. I'm off to lick my wounds. Maybe I'll deliver next week's episode decapitated if the universe keeps letting me shave myself. You know what? All Quiet on the Western Front is also ours, but actually moves decently. It's worth a watch. But also, definitely return to The Master, Joaquin Phoenix, Philip Seymour Hoffman, two spooky dudes, excellent cinema. Same time, same place, 7 days, see no evil.